there. So I'm going to start now, and I'm going to share my screen and jump straight in. What is? Oh, yeah, here it is, the screen. So, where's Excel gone? Can anyone see that Excel? Can you see Excel on my screen? Dermot, just unmute or somebody and let me know.
Yeah, we can see it, Clive.
It's rather small in the left side.
Okay, you can see it. Great. I have got a little PowerPoint thing, but I'll show you that later. I think the best way to do this is to jump straight in. So this is an Excel template that I've written that I think can be used for any business, whether it's limited, self-employed, personal ownership, or limited company. You would need one for every business, but that is the same with any software. So that's not different. What you'll be faced with is the front page. And the only thing I've not quite mastered is getting these little tick boxes a little bit bigger than they are. I know it's just a sort of aesthetic feature, but I've struggled to get them any bigger. So they are a little bit fiddly. That's all. So obviously you enter your name at the top in the yellow. And I'll explain all of these things in a moment. You tick if you're VAT registered. So I'm just going to leave VAT registered off for the moment. And I'm going to close the summaries over to the right just for the moment and just talk about this sheet here. So the top section is where you would tick what certain features you want or apply to your business. Do you have a separate business bank account for your business? Yes or no? Tick it yes or no. Are you VAT registered or not? So that's fairly obvious. And then there are 4 sheets for each quarter. Sorry, 1 sheet for each quarter. So 4 sheets for the whole year. There's 4 for receipts, money received. There's 4 for payments, money paid out. And there's also a sales sheet that I'll come to at the end. A lot of you probably won't use that. And I would suggest in most cases, you probably don't need to, but I will explain what it is. And the final boxes to the far right are whether you want to see the summary sheets or not. So if you watch at the bottom, I'm just going to start ticking. If you watch at the bottom, all you can see is 1 tab at the moment. Hopefully, if you can see the bottom, very bottom left, you should be able to see a tab called Menu and Data. Can you see that? I'm assuming yes.
Yes, I can see it.
Yes, you can see it.
In future, if I say yes, can you see something? Unless you can't, let's just remain silent. Okay. Unless I nominate somebody, the teacher's pet. Okay. So if I switch on the receipts for the first quarter, you can see the tab has appeared at the bottom. If I switch on the payments for the first quarter, another tab appears. So the reason why I don't have them all on view at once is because the names are quite similar. And I think people would get confused if they had a lot of tabs open and were working on different things at one time. So I'll show you the individual sheets in a moment. Let's just continue with the main page, the menu and data page. And you only fill in what's yellow. So there's very, very little to fill in. In fact, if you're not VAT registered, you don't even fill in this section here. And if you've not got a separate business bank account or different bank accounts, you don't even fill in this section here. So I'm going to now start on the sheets, and first thing I'm going to show you is what happens if you do or do not have a separate business bank account. So I'm going to open receipts. That's the first sheet. And the payment sheet is virtually identical to this. And you only fill in this section here. Excuse me, I'm colorblind. I'm going to suggest that's grey. I'm sorry if it's not. But this first section, data entry section, is the only place that you actually fill in any data. There are one or two other things you do in little drop-down selections like there, but they're not very much to do. Now I'm just going to at the moment it's set for you haven't got a business bank account, so everything is just assumed to come out of one pot of money. If you go back and switch separate business bank account on, then all of a sudden you've got this blue section here. Now I've called it your choice because you can name those choices on the front sheet where the yellow is. So if I want to put Santander in there, then you'll suddenly see that that first choice there is Santander. Okay? So I'm going to now fill in a receipt. You have to fill in everything. So you either choose April, May or June because we're in the first quarter. You have to choose a date and it has to be in that quarter. You have to say who you've paid. You have to say what you've paid them for. Maybe you've bought some stationery. You have to choose an invoice number and you have to choose an amount. Okay? Now you can choose that it came out of the Santander or any other choice you have. And you have a receipt type. I should have remembered. I shouldn't have used stationery as an example. These are receipts. But let's say you've sold some stationery to Fred. Just an odd example because usually you buy stationery, but you could be so it's a revenue receipt. Now the difference between revenue and capital, I'm not going to go into everything I talk about tonight, but we have talked about that in the past. Revenue receipts are things that like income that you pay tax on. Capital receipts are probably things like you've received a loan. So I will get, my training materials go through all of that, and you won't miss out on that. So, and then you choose sales if it was a sale. So now you've done everything. That's all you do for that receipt. For that receipt of money, you have now finished. So the bookkeeping is now done. I know I'm dwelling on this point. I just want to say that you have now completed all the work relating to recording that money received. I was going to do VAT at the end, but I'm just going to switch VAT on. And I'm just going to jump back to it. Suddenly, this section here in red, again, just for those who've joined, in case I've gone mad, I think that looks like red. I'm colorblind. But it's this section here called VAT. The rate of VAT on that is standard rated, and it's calculated the VAT for you. So if you are VAT registered, and I'm going to switch VAT back off, that's the only additional thing you have to do is choose whether it's 0 rated or standard rated, or any of these other more unusual items down here. 99% of the time, if you're VAT registered, it'll be standard. I should really put that one first. I'll probably change that before I send out any of these. And of course, if you do use 0, it doesn't put a figure in the VAT. So I'm going to switch VAT off just because it's, for most people, it's not relevant and it just adds a level of complexity. So I'm going to now do exactly the same thing for payments. That was money received, receipts. I'm going to switch on the payments sheet, I call them, for the first quarter. And I'm going to go to that sheet and I'm going to do exactly the same as I did before. I'm going to choose the month. I'm going to choose the date. And excuse me for being boring and just choosing the same date. I'm going to pay Joe this time, and I'm going to buy some marketing off Joe. Some marketing advice for which he charged me, sent me an invoice, number one. I'll talk about invoice numbers later, perhaps. And he charged me £500. And as I said, you now choose your bank account. Then you choose from the drop down, it's a revenue payment. It's not a fixed asset. It's not like a car or a computer or a piece of equipment or the repayment of a loan. It's directly a revenue payment, because once I've used that marketing advice, it's gone, but it goes towards generating my income. So I'm going to look for the most relevant section here. Oh yes, marketing. I've got marketing, and I've put the amount in, £500. Incidentally, what I didn't do on the receipts was just go across to the right, and it's put it in marketing for you, just like before on the receipts. It put it in sales for you. So you've now done one transaction on payments. We paid Joe £500 for marketing, and we received from Fred £120 for some stationery that we sold to Fred. So you've now completed two transactions, one on receipts, one on payments, and that is all you do. Obviously, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the quarter, throughout the year, there's bound to be more than one transaction. But if there were 10 transactions, and just let's pretend they were all the same, it'd look like that. If there were 20 payments, your sheet would end up looking like that. I mean, I know they're all the same, but just to save time, I'm not going to do various ones. And if it's all from Santander, you can actually cheat and just copy it down, but I shouldn't really be teaching you cheats yet. But you can. Ideally, you should get used to it by going into the drop-down box on each thing, making the decision. Make the decision every time. That's a purchase. That's a subcontractor. That's wages. And you can see that they're going across the page like that, and it's being added up. The total of the column is being added up all the time. And not to dwell the point, but if I go back and just put VAT on and go back here and say that they're all standard rated, I could go down the column ideally one by one, but I'm cheating. It's put the VAT in for you on every single one. Again, we're going to choose standard rated. I know it's a cheat because we're using the same amount every time. Sorry, just copy that down. But that's how it would look if you were VAT registered and all those items were there. So obviously you've got to fill in. You have to fill in where it's got a little arrow at the top. You also have to fill in this. It says there, fill in all columns. But here it tells you with the little arrow, blue arrow, red, whatever color they are, brown or what I think they are. And that's it. You don't fill in any of those. It does it for you. So that's basically your bookkeeping done. You either choose to do that yourself to do it daily, weekly, monthly, depending on how many you've got. Now, I'm just going to show you one more thing. Just going to show you one more thing. So for the moment, I'm just going to take out these transactions that we've put in. Okay. Because I think, well, I'm going to show you more than one more thing. There's a bit of bounce there. Has anybody got mute off? Okay. Okay. Can we all mute, please? Are we all muted? Yep, that's great. Thank you. I'm just going to show you something. Well, many things, but as I said, I'll show you. I'll show you this. Some people might say, well, how can I speed that process up if I've got a Santander bank, if I've got a bank account that I can turn into a spreadsheet? This is the download of somebody, you don't know the person, otherwise I would have hidden it. This is a download of somebody's bank account. It's got the date, the description, the money in, the bank balance, and the money out. Now, how can I get this over here very quickly? Okay, so what I see is that I've got the date, the description, the payee, and the amount, but I've got two columns in the way there. So it does require a little bit of Excel dexterity, I admit. Otherwise you'll have to do it line by line. But if I was to put two columns in there like that, this was a download of my bank account, then I could actually just go and grab those there. I'm just going to grab the first 10 or something like that. I could grab those like that, put it there, and it's filled it in for you. So although my system has not got what we call bank feed, if you've got a little bit of skill at with Excel, and you can download your bank statements like I have just shown you. Where's it gone? Here it is. Here it is. Then, and as long as you've got a little bit of dexterity, and even if you didn't open up those columns, you could do it in two steps. You could do these first there, and then you could go back to the other spreadsheet and grab the amount. So you don't have to put the two spaces columns in the middle. You could do it like that in two moves. Now, please don't ask me about the gaps here. It's just too long-winded an Excel issue for, you know, it's just because of the layout of that other bank statement where it's receipts and payments rather than just receipts or just payments. But I can show you how to deal with that. But I don't really want to take up time tonight spending time copying and pasting from a bank statement onto my system. So far, we've entered one receipt. We've entered one payment. I'm just taking these things that we entered out. That's all. Spoiling anything because I've not got rid of the cells or anything. So let me talk about one or two other features. No, what I'll do is I'll just put back that that payment, a sample payment that we had before. I'll just put in a few like this for the payments because I want to show you the summary sheets now to finish the sheets off. You just grab that again, if I may. Just put some meat on the body. There we are. So we've got Santander again, our bank, and I know all the amounts are the same, and I've even left the VAT on for now. So there we are, and we'll say that they're all revenue, and they're all sale purchases. So I'm just putting some sample data back in. That's all. So let's go back to payments and make sure that's complete. Okay, just fill Santander in all the way down. That was the only thing we hadn't completed. And we'll put them all in sales. So now we've got some data in, a little bit repetitive, the data, but we've got some nice chunky data. So we've got receipts tab open, payments tab open. The only one we've not got open, I'll come to the sales sheet later, is the summary sheet. Oh, why hasn't, because I didn't click on it. That's why I was worried then that it didn't appear, but it did. I didn't tick the box cleanly enough, so it didn't appear. So this is the summary sheet. And as you can see, there's three lots. There's profit and cash flow, which is this top section here. I think you can see my cursor zooming around, can't you? Okay. And the second section, the middle section, is receipts, money received. And the third section is payments. Now, the way to go up and down is to actually just jump to payments or jump to receipts. These buttons will also take you back to the top. As it happens, 90% of it's on my screen, so the jumping around doesn't really have much of an impact. But if you look closely now, in April, you can see that I've received £2,800, which is all of those lots of £100, which was the sale, all the sales of the stationery. You can also see that I've paid out £1,200, which is all of the lots of £1,200 here, all of the lots of stationery. Because I've sold stationery and bought stationery. It's just the boring examples that I've used. But we've had money in of 2,800, money out of 1,200. So we've made a profit of £1,600. So that's the profit and cash flow section. This top summary here. So it summarizes it per month, per quarter, and then at the bottom for the whole year. The grand total, perhaps should say total for the year, might be a slightly better description than grand total. In the middle, this is just now a deeper dive, a deeper analysis of receipts, money received. It was all sales, so it's all in this little section here, because I didn't put it, I was boring and I said every figure was sales. Had some of it been refunds, some of that 2,800 would be in that column or that column or that column. So it's pretty boring, but it would spread right across this sheet if it wasn't. So all of the money received was sales, 2,800. I was again boring on the payments. All of the payments were for purchases. So again, it's £1,200. But if they hadn't been purchases, you can see that it would have gone right the way across here. So you can break it down into office, telephone, loan interest, bank charges, premises costs, repairs, accountancy, or you can break it down into capital payments such as drawings, fixed assets, loan payments, tax. So it goes right across, and I've tried to think of every conceivable category that you could have. And if in case I've missed one, I've put sundry at the end. So anything that doesn't, if you have something like you bought a kangaroo, I couldn't think of anything weirder, and you can't think of where to put it in any of these categories, you'll have to put it in sundries for now, at least, until you decide where better it should go. So, as I said, I've tried to think of all the categories possible. So far, if we go back to the beginning, I've shown you what happens with a separate bank account, or if you are or not VAT registered. I've showed you the first the first quarter for receipts, money received, the first quarter for payments made out, and I've showed you the summary of all of those things. It would be identical if you were in the different quarter. Absolutely identical system. You would obviously put July, August, or September instead of April, May, June. You'd put July, August, September, or October, November, December, or January, February, March. I know at the moment I'm assuming that everybody's year end is the 31st of March. These dates are here, and you can change those if it's not. I have to tell you, as an accountant, I have one client who, for seasonal purposes only, does not have a 31st of March year end. I'm absolutely convinced that every business should be 31st of March. For property, you have to have 31st of March. It's been the tax law for years that we account for property businesses by tax year. So that's 31st of March anyway, for all of you. It's the tax year. You don't want to have a period end, an accounting year end, an accounting period end of anything other than 31st of March or 5th of April, which is tantamount to the same thing, unless you have a persuasive reason to have a different date. That's my advice. Anyway, we've had a look at the summary. So what was I saying? Yes. The only thing we've not had a look at, and I'm gonna do so very, very quickly, is switch on the VAT summary. And the VAT summary, I'm aware that a lot of you aren't VAT registered. That's why I'm it's a summary that, for all intents and purposes, that looks like the previous summary, to be honest. But all this is doing is picking out the VAT amounts instead of the total amounts. And at the bottom here, it fills in your VAT return for you. So there's your first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and a total for the year. And it's filled it in for you. So, and again, you can bounce. It was because most of it was on my large screen. But if you want to jump to the VAT returns, you just click that. So if you're right at the very top of the sheet, you can either scroll down, which doesn't take long, or if you're right at the top of the screen, you can just go VAT, and it takes you down to the VAT returns, some VAT returns at the bottom, which you can use then to fill in your VAT return and just submit it. So let me go back to the beginning and switch off the VAT summary. And let me think if there's anything else that I really want to show you without dwelling too much on VAT, because all the rates are here. I've left some spare columns in there in case there's new. It's just easier to have spare rows like here, some spare rows, rather than having to update the spreadsheet all the time. As I said, the yellow is all you fill in. You don't have to fill in everything, but the yellow is what you can fill in. These are the choices on here. Those are the choices of all the column headings. So when I said I had marketing, telephone, accountancy, bank charges, all of these all of these headings are listed here for you. You don't need to touch them. You don't need to ever look at them. If you want to have a quick look what I mean by marketing, then it includes what marketing, websites, social media. If you want to look at bank charges, it'll tell you in a few words a very, very brief description of what it is. If you want to, these are the capital payments. Those are the revenue payments. Again, if you want to have a little look at a brief description of what it is, then you can do. But otherwise, you don't really need to touch that down here, apart from the yellow if you're VAT registered, or to name your banks, and the top bit here to enter your name at the very top, and to switch on and off the sheets, the receipts, the summaries, the payments, or to switch on and off whether you're VAT registered or not. You're not VAT registered, you just leave it off, and you never touch that, and you never touch that summary there. If you've not got a separate business bank account, you're just using a pot of money, whether that's your personal bank account, your personal credit card, everything like that, you just leave that switched off. And it's as simple as as that can be. I've shown you how to import from the bank statements. So I'm just going to have a very quick look at my presentation. Well, this isn't a presentation. This is actually, it's training. This is what you can have or comes with the spreadsheet. So, okay, this is bound to be a question people would ask. Why Excel and why not paper and pen at the worst case scenario? Why not paper and pen? And why not software like, excuse me for doing that spelling mistake. Why not Xero or QuickBooks or Sage or something like that? So I'll answer those questions. Paper and from 1st of April 2026, you won't be able to use paper and pen anymore. You have to keep a digital record. There are some exemptions for very, very small businesses, but even they will be brought into into digital records. Excel has been accepted and has always been accepted as digital records. So from 1st of April 26, you're going to have to. For now, really anybody should be, if they can, should be using digital records and not paper and pen. So if you're very comfortable with Excel, or you don't feel quite ready, or you're uncomfortable with integrated software like Xero, and I'm doing a webinar on Xero in 2 weeks tonight, so you can compare it. But if you're not comfortable with that sort of software, and I don't blame you, I love Excel. I can use the other software. I find Excel quicker. It's just that I just so at ease with it. So that's the first set main reasons why you would use Excel. You can do all your digital bookkeeping, provides all the information you need to prepare your accounts. So if I go back to that summary, if it's still switched on, it is, and it's here, and I go to the profit and loss at the top here and all those expense categories, I haven't added a page yet to do a profit and loss account, but effectively that is your profit and loss account. To take you 2 minutes, 5 minutes to do your profit and loss account from this summary. So as I was saying on here, it enables you to submit to prepare your accounts. It enables you to submit your quarterly VAT returns. It enables you to comply with Making Tax Digital from April 26. And my version is fully supported by written documentation, which you're basically looking at now, regular free webinars and support. So just to go through the presentation, just to see if I've missed anything, I need to come to the property version in a minute, because you'll see on the right some exciting things there. So let me just have a quick go through. Just really, so can somebody mute if we're not all muted, please? Thank you. Somebody mute. Thank you. Okay, I'm really going through the PowerPoint just to make sure I've not missed anything, but also to give you a glimpse of what you will get if you want to use the spreadsheet. It's you know, I've copied and pasted screenshots and talk you through them, show you which sections you have to fill in, a screenshot of the receipts, a screenshot of the payments. This is the property version. As you can see, there's slightly different. There's 4 summaries because it was so to the far right, you've got 4 summary sheets, 1 for each quarter instead of 1 for the year, incidentally. But previously on the business sheet, I only had an annual summary. Just go through these in more detail. So now I've broken that down, and the VAT boxes down even more detail. That's on the property section, which I'll come to now. I think we're going to keep hitting that property thing. So I'm going to show you the property system now. It's very much the same. It's just got some extra stuff, to be honest. So I'm going to go to menu, make that a little bit bigger. Right, I've made that quite a bit bigger now. So as I said, the top here, the top menus are all the same as on the other spreadsheet, except I have got 4 individual quarters on the summary. Oh, that's still opening. It's just a little bit slow. So because I clicked, it's just opening, going bigger and bigger, one step at a time. Okay, I think it's stopped now. So I've got a quarterly summary plus an annual summary. Everything else to the left there is identical. To this left area here, we've got the yellow, I call it source. I'm going to change that to bank or payment source, because it looks like it doesn't mean much to you, probably, source. And the VAT data there in yellow. And all the categories here, the categories of payments and receipts, they're slightly different, very, very slightly different. I may have called them rent, like at the top there, rental income instead of sales. So they're more or less the same categories, but I've probably just tweaked 1 or 2 of them, the names of the categories, very slightly to be more useful to somebody in property. It's this section over here that is new or additional to for property. So if you don't mind, I'm just unsharing because it felt very remote. So can we all wave to say that we're still alive and that we're still on? I know Chris can't because he's just got a photo. He looks very stationary. Anyway, that's useful to know that I'm not talking to a brick wall. Thank you for that. I'm just sharing again. And we'll go back. So this section here is brand new for the property section. And I'm going to say that I own one of the properties in this business. Karen, also, my wife, also owns one of them, and we own one of them jointly. Okay. So there's now, and I'm going to put here 3 of my properties: Patterdale, Nan Grieve and Hatters. Okay. Now, what type of property is that? That one is a buy-to-let. That one is an HMO, is an HL, sorry. And that one is commercial. Okay. Now, I've got to say, because Clive definitely owns one of the properties, and it happens to be that one. Karen definitely owns one of the properties, and it's that one. And this is the one we own jointly. And that drop down list there is created from that list there. Those drop downs are created from this permanent list here, so you can't touch that. That's all right. Now, I'm going to put the full address in. So it's number 1 Patterdale. And when that line is complete, it turns to white. And I'm sorry, the format on that has gone to 1 p.m. That's because I did 1p instead of number 1 Patterdale Road. Just by chance, I chose something that this is number 2 Nangrieve Road, and it goes white. And this is number 3 Hatters Court. And when complete, it goes white. Okay, so I am going to extend this, but the summaries are very long. And to be honest with you, when you get over about 10 properties, you're probably starting to get ready for something like Zero and a bookkeeper if you don't want to do it yourself. But at the moment, I've restricted that to 5, but I am going to open up these other 5 and make it 10. I want to go to receipts and show you the only difference now. Do you remember in receipts, we had to choose April. We had to choose a date, and I was boring. I chose the first day of April, and I received money from, somebody called Fred. And I think I said that it was, well, I'll say it was rent this time. This is the only extra column you've got. The only extra column you've got, I repeat that, on the receipt sheet and on the payment sheet is the house. And that comes from the list on the front page. That is the only extra thing you have to do. Once you have filled in this area here, the only extra thing you have to do different on the property version of this spreadsheet as opposed to the general business version, which might be used by a plumber, an accountant, any trade you can think of. I have got VAT switched on at the moment. So and VAT is less likely to apply to property, I have to admit, but I wanted to cater for it. So I'm just gone back and switched that off. So now all I have to do is to finish off is put the invoice number, put the amount that I received from Fred. It's rent, so it's a revenue receipt. It's taxable income. And it's rental income. I'm going to probably choose that very first column there. And look, it's put it in there for you. You have now finished. You've now finished one whole transaction on the property template, on the receipts, in the first quarter, on the first day of the quarter. And the only extra column you had on this compared to the non-property was you had to name the house from the list. It's the only extra decision you had to make. Then this will populate right across. I'm going to do one transaction for you. Payments. Very easy. I'll be boring. I'll choose April. Promise you it does work for every date and every month, but it's just easier not to have to think. And like before, I'll pay Joe, and I'll pay him for some stationery. And I'll now, because the station, this is a good one. I'm glad I chose that, because if it had been a repair, I would have probably chosen a house. But because stationery is for the property business, I've added, even though there isn't a house called unspecified, I've added a category called unspecified for you to mop that up. So telephone, stationery, training courses, motor expenses, travel expenses, all of those sort of things that are what you might call general overheads and do not relate to, so had that been repairs, so do not relate to a property. If that's, you put unspecified. If that's a repair, I'll put the property. Now, if it's a repair to my mobile phone, that's not a property. Even that repair would actually be unspecified. We've got an invoice number and we've got an amount, £200. It's a revenue payment because it's a repair. It's a payment category of repairs, which is the second one down after utilities. You have now done one whole transaction of payments on the property template. The only difference is you have to choose a house or say it's unspecified. That's the only difference. You can now go and do what you did before. And if you want to grab some transactions like we did before, we could just make that like we were going to do before. We have to now make that 3 columns wide, not 2, because we've got that extra column in the way for the house. So I'm just jumping back to there. So I can go back to there and I can grab these transactions and I could just do that. Perfect. I do have to go and fill this in because that's not on the bank. I do have to go and fill this in. And as it happens, all of these were May, look. So I do have to do a little bit of work, I'm afraid. And I have to go and fill in May. Oops, my mistake. I didn't copy it. I do have to. There we are. I can copy it down. I'm cheating, I know. And let's pretend it's all repairs and it's all unspecified. You know, just to fill it in. That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing, just to show you how you can cheat, not cheat. Well, you can cheat. That is a bit of a cheat, but how you can go and get from your Excel or CSV version. Never tried it with the CSV version. I don't see why it wouldn't work, but just save a CSV version as Excel and there isn't even a risk. So go and save that and copy it over and you can save yourself a bit of time and not but you know, otherwise it's just line by line. But don't think using zeros any different. It's all line by line. You have to enter each line. Well, there are some cheats now with artificial intelligence. You can scan. I mean, let me show you this. Let me show you this. Here it is. I left it on the desktop because I wanted to show it you. Just taking a moment to open. There's about 130 invoices there listed. Sorry, 92 invoices listed there. You can't see them. I don't know if you can see me, but there's a file there with a section in the middle. You can't see me. You're looking at the spreadsheet, aren't you? Yeah, I was just holding up a file of 92 invoices. I scanned them through a scanner, sent them to auto entry, and a few hours later they sent me this back. They did the same with the bank statements. This guy is so old-fashioned, he sent me the paper copies of his bank statements. I scanned them, sent them to auto entry, and they sent this back to me exactly like you are looking at now. It was a whole year's transactions. Obviously, there's a small payment. They don't do it for nothing, but it's quite cheap, and it's certainly cheaper than me typing that out. That's 260 lines long. That's very boring work. And it's still a few quid, even if you pay a foreign VA to do it. So what else have I got on here? If you do need to add new rows, let me just fill that in. I was lazy before when I did that. If you've now filled all of this in, right down to here, don't panic. All you have to do is add new row. And it added a new row for you. I always breathe when that happens. Then I put 35 in, which is the next row. I put the month in from the drop down box. I put the date in and I carry on. If I want another row, I add another row. There's a few warnings that I've got at the end of my PowerPoint. You cannot delete a row. So if you don't need this row now, just don't worry about it. I know it looks ugly not to have a row not filled in. That would actually stop me sleeping tonight if I had a row that wasn't filled in. But to avoid corrupting the spreadsheet, I cannot delete that row. So just open as many as you need. Now, one of the nice features about this is that I can close that quarter. Now, I haven't tested this for a while, so I'm just going to test it now. I'm just going to see if I can add a row. If I can, it's because I've not taken the lock off. Yeah, I think I've not relocked it because I've been messing around with it. But if I press close the quarter, it prevents me from ever going into that. Not ever. I could open it again if I want, but I shouldn't, because if I've sent a VAT return in or sent my accounts in based on that quarter, I want that quarter locked. I want nobody to accidentally be able to enter or change something, because if I've sent a VAT return in and then somebody comes in and changes the number, I'll never ever be able to work out why this is now different to the VAT return. So close the VAT quarter, the payments quarter. As I said, it's not locked because I've taken the lock system off because I've been updating. But if you want to use this, I will re-engage the lock system. But if you do have to open it for any reason, and you're confident to open it because you haven't done the VAT, then you can reopen it. So that's a really good feature. I'm just going to go to the summaries now. We've had it just under an hour, and I just want to go to the summaries of the property system and show you the different summaries that the property system has compared to the business system. And then we've finished, and I'll have a quick glance through the PowerPoint just to make sure I've mentioned everything. And then anyone can ask any questions. So another 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to have a quick look. Firstly, we have got some transactions in. I'll just very briefly say what the rents sheet is. Sorry to digress. It's just that I noticed it. I don't think many people will use this. And as an accountant, I wouldn't ordinarily tell a client that they should do this. But some people might think, oh, I'd love to be able to do such and such. And that such and such is as follows. You may want to know that everybody who owes you rent has paid you. In the old days, we called it a rent book. and used to have, it was a law, I think, to keep a rent book, possibly like a landlord law. I honestly don't know. But what you can do here is you can list all the money that you should receive, and you can mark them off as paid. Now, as I said, I don't think many people will use that anymore. But if you want to list all your rent that you should receive, like on the business section, the business template, if you want to list all the sales that you have, all the sales invoices, I keep my fee notes in 2 piles. One are paid and one are unpaid. I don't need this, a sales sheet, to help me do this. But if I didn't want to keep them in 2 piles, I would list them here and mark them off when they're paid. As I said, I'm not sure how many people will use that, and I don't think it's overly necessary, but the feature is there if you're inclined. Now I'm going to go back to the property filter. It's not property filter. That's the name of the software, isn't it? To the property template, Excel template, and just very quickly talk about the summaries. So I have got one of the summaries switched on for the first quarter. I have got the annual one switched on as well. So I'm going to the summary. Here it is, third tab in. That's why I like to close the ones I'm not doing, because it took me a moment to find the one I wanted. It's the summary for April, May, and June. Now, the thing that's different about a property business to, say, a business as a plumber only has really sales to customers, clients, whatever he calls them, for plumbing. Whether it's plumbing a toilet or plumbing a shower or plumbing a drain, nobody really cares. Okay? He does plumbing. The difference with property is that you may want to know, I mean, if you're a massive multi-million pound plumbing company, you might want to separate all your income into drains, toilets, showers. But you and me, if we were plumbers, we wouldn't need that breakdown. But a property business, we may want to know the breakdown between the house, by the category, or as we call it, strategy, which will be buy-to-let HMO as one strategy, holiday lets SA as another strategy, commercial a strategy, rent to rent would be strategy, foreign would be strategy. So all those strategies are available, as you can remember, on the front here. On the front, you've got those categories listed down here. And I've even got unspecified, just in case you have some property income that for a strategy that I don't know. I had to put it just in case. So I'm going back to it. Now, if you want to know by house, do you remember I set up 3 houses? I'm allowed up to 5, but I'm thinking of extending it to 10. I've got 3 at the moment, plus a default one called unspecified. Well, it's now put those 3 houses there. If there'd been a 4th or a 5th house, it would have created 2 more columns. If there'd only been 1 property, it would have deleted these 2nd and 3rd ones and only left Patterdale and unspecified. So that is by house. So this top section here, more or less everything you can see, you've got money, revenue receipts, revenue payments, capital receipts, capital payments. That's everything, because the next section just below it is summary by type. Now remember, type is really strategy, and you've got them across the top here. You've got buy-to-let, HMO, HL stroke SA, commercial, foreign, rent to rent, and no specified. So you've got them all here, okay? And at the moment, the numbers I've put in, it was all for one property and all to Patterdale, which was a buy-to-let. So that's why it's all in that first column there. Incidentally, if I want to zoom back to the top, I can. And if I want to zoom down to by type, I just click that. Admittedly, I've just got to scroll a tiny bit to get it just at the top perfectly like that. But the other thing you might want to know is by owner. You might want to know what Clive has made on Patterdale, what Karen has made on Nangrieve, and what Karen and Clive made on Hatters. Remember, I filled in 3 ownerships. So those are the 3 ownerships that I have allocated. So I'm now going to go down to owner. Clive has done very well. His Patterdale property had £1,200 worth of income. Karen got nothing in April or this quarter. Only because I haven't put any figures in for Karen's property, and which was Nangrieve, and I haven't put any figures in for for Hatters Court, which is owned by Karen and Clive. But I can say now, at the end of this quarter, what Clive personally, and only Clive, has made, and I can shoot to the top. Sorry, that's the top there, to house. Or I can go to shoot down to type, or I can shoot down to owner, and I can even go down to owner by type. So now there's Clive, owner by type. You have to scroll down a bit further to Karen. It's just that it's a very long report, that's all. And there's Karen and Clive by type. Okay, remember I pretended Hatters was commercial. That's why commercial has popped up for Karen and Clive. Admittedly, no figures. I remember, if you remember, Nangrieve for Karen was a HL, so that's why HL has popped up for her. And Patterdale was a buy-to-let stroke HMO, so that's why that category, and only that category, has popped up for Clive. You might say, why have I driven myself mad to do owner by type? Well, I've done it so that Clive can fill in his tax return, and Karen can. Because for your tax return, you need to know your income only, and you need to know it by category. Now, that's going to become a bit less relevant next year that they've abolished HLSA as a second category. But I didn't know that when I did this spreadsheet. And I still may want to know the difference between HL and HMO. And I certainly will want to know the difference between foreign and rent to and commercial and other things. So I have still got the ability to report by quarter, because we're in a quarter, by either the house, by either the strategy, by either the owner, or a combination of owner and strategy. And I've got that for each quarter. Now, I must admit, I haven't looked at the annual summary for a while. Forget this little bit here. I was just playing with that and I meant to delete it. Just forget that KL where I've shaded. The annual summary is basically exactly the same. It starts with house, but it's the annual total figures, not the quarter. I can do it by house, by type, by owner, and by owner by type. So actually, the annual summary is identical to any one of the quarters in layout. And in fact, I just did that. That was very nice. It just right where Clive was there on the quarterly summary is right where I was on the annual summary. So the layout is literally identical. The difference between them is that the annual summary is the total for the whole year, and the quarterly is for that quarter only. I have got a summary for the VAT, and this is the final summary I'm going to show you. It's all on one sheet, but they're hidden. So I've got, rather than having the 4 separate quarters and then a annual summary, they're all on one sheet, and you just choose at the top there the VAT quarter or the annual summary that you want. I'm not going to go into the figures. The VAT returns are at the bottom there. I showed you that on the business sheet as well. So we've done an hour and 10 minutes. I said we'd be another 10 minutes or so. I just want to really flick through the PowerPoint. As much as anything, I don't think it's to now jog my memory that I've not told you about something. It's to very briefly show you the extent of the PowerPoint or the training material that it comes with. Each, I choose on the payment sheet for month there where the cursor is, I even say choose from drop down list. Date, insert a date. You can do it in the short version or the long version. It will always convert it to the long version for you. Payee, the person who you paid. So all I'm doing, showing you the PowerPoint, is to show, which is the training, is to show you what information you get. A little bit of information on what the invoice number is. We didn't talk about that. What the payment sheets are. How even to do a split payment. I'm not going to go into this now because it's not difficult, but I just want you to know that if you pay £1,200 and £200 of that is for repairs and £1,000 of that is for marketing, I don't know, maybe it's a weird guy. He does both things. He does marketing and repairs for you. It's not impossible. It's weird, but you can split it. You can split the payment. So whereas I showed you one line for receipts, one line per payments, there is a method of splitting a receipt. Let's say a tenant pays you 1,200 quid, £600 deposit. This is more logical. £600 deposit and £600 for the first month's rent. How do you split that? Well, you can split it, put 1,200 in, split it, and put 600 in deposit and 600 in rent. It caters for it. And I've told you how to do it there. And obviously in a further webinar, when we go into some details, I could show you how to do that. That's not a problem. Just don't want to get too bogged down in minute detail. Even has a bank reconciliation. Not too keen to show you this right now. Again, a bit like the split payment. At this time of night, could be a bit too much. But if you go on any of the quarterly receipt sheets and go to the end there is a bank reconciliation system, and you only have to put the opening balance in at the beginning of the quarter and today's amount on the bank statement or in your bank account on your bank app, and it'll tell you if you've got a difference and where you should go and look for it. So it does do I suppose it does do bank reconciliation. Yes, it certainly enables you to reconcile your bank or know if it's not reconciled. And there it is, just showing you that. That's the rent. That's that optional rent control sheet. It's optional. Not convinced people will use it. It even does a rent reconciliation for you. Going back to there, going to there, and going to the right of it, there is the sales reconciliation, and you just put one figure in there. if you want to use it. So a rent or sales reconciliation. That's a little summary of the summary sheets that we've talked about. And it carries on. The training material carries on to tell you how to do each and every thing that I've talked about. We're talking about these are now into the area of that. So I'm going to stop there and see if you're all still with me, or you've all done a runner, the chippy, and ask anyone to unmute if they want to make any comments or ask any questions.
Do you comment?
Hi, Clive. It's Ian.
Hi, Ian.
Hi. That looks brilliant.
Thank you.
Quick question. You've got strategies on there, and I understand if it kind of flipped between you running it as your accounts for your personal account and a business account. But surely if you had a business, I know that Holiday Let and SA will become the same as Buy to Let. But, you know, when we started this, a lot of people drew differences between investment companies and trading companies. Aren't we risking mixing those strategies together?
No, I don't think we are. I mean, if you have a property investment company that occasionally sells a property, then that's fine as well. It's just a sales in another category. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to prove myself now, I think one of the categories on receipts is sale of a property. Sorry. Of course, it'll be a capital item if it's a sale of an investment property. Yeah, property sales. I know it's only 1,200 quid, pretty cheap, but and that's shot across there to property sales right over on the right. So I can cater for property sales as well. Just in case you did miss it, I know you've been on board the whole time. There are two spreadsheets here. There's the business one, and that might just be somebody who genuinely buys and sells. I think what you're talking about here is somebody who perhaps buys and lets and maybe sells occasionally. Is that what you might be talking about?
Well, it's just that when we set up, we were told that a buy-to-let property should go in an investment company, and I thought people.
What do you mean by an investment company? A limited company?
No, they're all in limited companies, but every property trainer we've spoken to, I think, has differentiated between investment company and a trading company.
So let me get this right. I think, because I do think I know how to answer you. So are you saying if you've got buy-to-lets, that's in company A, you've got holiday lets, that's in company B, because they're both investments, but they're both different types of investments, or you might merge them because they're all investments. And if you're also a flipper, are you saying that should be in company C?
No, like you said there, we were told that buy-to-let should be in a different company to holiday lets, and I thought also that HMO should be in a different company to buy-to-lets.
I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any law about that. But as I said at the very, very, very beginning, I think you do need one template for every business. So if you want to keep your buy-to-lets in company or business A, you need a spreadsheet for business A. If you want to keep your holiday lets in business B, you need a spreadsheet for business B. So I do understand, but there's also, this system does cater for people who do have one business only and do have a mix of properties. There's certainly no law. I agree. Now I know what you're saying. I do agree with you, Ian, that it's largely good advice, reasonably good advice, to keep your different strategies separate, but there's certainly no law to do so. Maybe sensible. It may help you with mortgages, but there's certainly no law. So the system does deal with multiple type strategies within the same business.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question, Clive? When we first set up, we spoke to an accountant who said to us that the business we were setting up, and we showed him, he said it had SIC codes that were conflicting. So the business needs to have SIC codes that matched the strategy.
Well, this is a similar question. It's a similar question to Ian's. It's an extension of that. Obviously, what I'm doing with this spreadsheet is providing a system that will account for whatever you do. Whether what you are doing is good advice or sensible, mixing properties and strategies, that's your decision. My system will operate for them. I think what both of you have asked me is more of a question as an accountant and or tax person and or property investor myself, who may agree that it's best to keep different strategies in different businesses. But there's no harm. There's no harm having a limited company that does HL and buy to let. There's no law against that. And if you want to put 2 or 3 or 4 SIC codes for your company, nobody can stop you doing that. If those apply and are genuine, it might well be that you do need more than one. I mean, generally speaking, there is one main category, 69120 or something. I might be just making that up, and I think it's deals in accommodation. It's such a general name that most of us only use this one SIC code anyway, because most of us don't do the other things that property SIC codes, like, building tunnels and things like that, or building skyscraper office blocks. Most of us don't do that. So this 69120, if that's the right number, is probably going to serve all of us for all time.
Yeah. One other quick question, Clive. What did you choose? You know where you had to put the month in relating to the quarter?
Yes.
Is there a reason you chose not to automate that from the date?
I did ask my guru if he could automate that for me, and I will ask him again, because it would be good if we could do it. The reason why we do need the April or the May or the June is so that we can do the summary by month. I suppose the summary could search the dates. It's really probably just beyond me. It's a great little comment, and I will put it to him. I designed it, but the macros and things I haven't done. They're beyond me.
Right.
So I will ask, but I do recall asking that, and he said it's fiddly because of the date formatting. It just made pick one up wrong or something. And once one of them is wrong, 1 month is wrong, you're finished.
Right. Okay. I mean, I can. If it would help, I can send you over the formula to do it. But
maybe. Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it did seem that it should be able to do it, and he gave me a reason why it might be dangerous. Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else got any?
Two questions, if I may, Clive.
Yes, please, Nick. Yes.
In box Q45 of the explanations of what goes into various categories, I noticed under utilities it's got rent. Is that right?
It could have been ground rent, because usually because these are the tax return classifications.
Right.
And only about 6 of them.
Okay.
And insurance, utilities, ground rent go in the first one, the first box. then you've got repairs and maintenance, then you've got management and service charges, and there's only I think 6 in all.
That makes sense. I either misread it or it just says rent.
It could have just said rent rather than ground rent.
Yeah,
I agree.
The second question is, I have insurance on one of my houses coming up in May.
Yeah.
Do I put the whole cost in the May month, or do I have to allocate it from one year to the next?
No, it's a great question, a bookkeeping question, but this is called cash accounting, which is rather wrong word, but it probably should be called bank accounting, because most people use their bank and put the most money in the bank and take most money out. But it's called cash accounting, always has been. And most businesses, small businesses, and there is a legal limit. It's over 600,000. I think they've just increased it to over 1 million. Have to use cash accounting, or any property business has to use cash accounting. So we're only worried. We're only making entry for what we have paid.
Right.
We only make an entry for what we have paid. Otherwise, our bank can't reconcile. Because if you put the whole bill in that you pay over 10 months, 9 months, your bank won't reconcile. And then suddenly it will.
No. Okay.
So we are cash accounting. Now, at the end of the year, your accountant might have a look at these accounts prepared on cash accounting and say, "Oh, you know what? You've just paid." Let's say you're a business that runs a shop, a retail shop, and you're required to pay your rent quarterly in advance. And let's say you pay your rent in the last month of the year, March. And let's say you've paid £3,000 for a quarter, of which only 1,000 relates to March. Your accountant will look at that and say, "Well, you know what? I'm going to do an adjustment only in the accounts, not in your paperwork, for £2,000 and say, I'm going to push that forward to next year." But your records have to be cash accounting. What you've paid, the money you've received, that's what you deal with. Not the money you want to be paid, want to receive, will have to pay. It's what you've paid or received. Full stop.
That's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, you're sorry, 2 hands up. Dermot first, unmute, please. I didn't see the hands. And then Stuart, please. Dermot. Unmute, please, Dermot. Ask to unmute. Can't hear you. You were okay earlier. Oh, just a minute. Yeah, I heard an egg. Maybe it's your audio. Let's just see if Stuart can unmute and talk, and then we'll know you've got the problem. Stuart?
Clive, can you hear that?
I can hear that, Stuart. So have a look at your microphone there, Dermot, please.
Yeah. I've got
Stuart.
2 questions.
Yeah,
One
good. Go ahead.
About the date that you put in.
Yes.
And sort of I found it easier to sort of link up receipts and invoices to the date that the invoice is sent to me, or the date of the invoice, but then I might pay it 2 weeks later.
No, you can't do that. You can't do that. This is the cash accounting.
Right.
And property, you have to be cash accounting. If you want to do that and want to have a full ledger system, you will need to use something like Xero or QuickBooks or Sage or something like that. That's called invoice accounting, not cash accounting. But if you remember, just to control that, just to help you keep in control of that, I did include a sales sheet here so that you could list your sales and mark them off when paid. So you can still do that sort of on this flat system. this is a two-dimensional, if you want, cash accounting system. It does not reconcile to invoices. You can attach your invoices. You can reference your invoices. In fact, there's the invoice number here.
Yeah.
And on the payment sheet, the invoice number that is there. I know they're all number one, but they'll all be number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on.
Because I've got, let's say, sort of 10 people invoicing me. They've all got different invoicing numbers, but you just put that.
Yeah, but actually, just to go to that point, and I'll go back to. Can you see the spreadsheet at the moment, or just
no? We can see.
I apologise. I did flick back to the spreadsheet, forgetting these are that person's invoices that I showed you that I'd summarised. They're there. I scanned them in. Them in and created that sheet before. Now, frankly, one of them is Morrison's. Is there an invoice number on it? No. If it was, it would be gobbledygook to me. It'd be probably the millionth invoice. All I'm going to do with this is write number 1. I'm not going to do it because it's his paperwork. Write number 1 on there, file it. Write number 2, file it. I don't care about Morrison's invoice number. I only care that I can go from that sheet. I can go from that sheet of paper to find where I've entered number 1, or I can go the other way from the spreadsheet and it says number 1 and go to my file and find number 1. I can go either way, and that's basic bookkeeping. Now, if you want to add a column, and I understand why, if you want to add a column, not the end of the world, we could add a column here in between here, and this could be this head. I apologise.
We can't see it.
I can't see it. I apologise. I won't keep flicking back, but if you visualise the spreadsheet where I put my invoice number, we could have a column next to it. This one could be called my invoice number, Stuart's invoice number, and if you really wanted a column next to it, supplier's invoice number, and it could be 4864321A. Yeah, you can type that in, no problem. If you go back to if you went back to that spreadsheet from auto entry, it actually captures the invoice numbers if there is one. But on a lot of invoices from big companies, there aren't any invoice numbers.
No. I'm really impressed with the software. It's just so powerful.
Yes. Does the job. I hope. Have you got another question there, Stuart?
No, I do, please. Yeah, I've had a holiday let in Europe for the last 20 years.
Yes.
And I found that I'm making payments and receiving rent in euros, but I'm making payments in euros, pounds, and US dollars for various things. And I'm just wondering how that works for the foreign properties in here.
Okay, well, I haven't got a foreign currency translator thing on here. That would be far too sophisticated for me to do. But there is a category, a strategy called foreign. You may have noticed that. And all I would say is that that you probably need to, if it doesn't end up in your sterling bank account, which gives you the sterling amount, but it stays in a euro bank account, I think you'll just have to translate that, Stuart, at an approximation on that day. That's what
I've been doing. It's very laborious to do it.
It's a bit, isn't it? And if there's a lot of it, that's when you start needing integrated software. I'm happy to, as that's probably a particular to you. I'm happy to talk about that with you another day and see if I can do something to help there. Put our heads together and see what we can think.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. No, this is kind of, it's just so labor saving this. It's,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some time there, and you've got to decide if that's time you want to spend or get somebody else to spend. There are some time-saving techniques like using the bank statement download. Is it quicker on Xero? Possibly, probably a little bit. But you've got to want to use some software like Xero. You've got to be able to, I mean, I still struggle using a mobile phone like a lot of us do, some of the things. So integrated software like Xero and QuickBooks isn't for everybody, especially if they've been brought up on Excel.
I found using QuickBooks, because the whole idea was to scan a receipt and it enters it automatically, and it wasn't getting the currency right. It wasn't scanning the numbers right. Really? So after I'd paid for 3 months, I just gave up. I've
heard that they're not, that some of them aren't very good with the foreign. And if that's particular for you, then that is an issue. It's a shame. Whether they're better today or Xero's better than QuickBooks, I don't really know.
No, that's really useful. Thank you. That was all my questions now.
Okay, if you've got any more, you can come back. We've hopefully you'll come in a minute, Dermot. But let's go to Nick.
Hi, Clive. Thanks for that information. A couple of questions.
Yeah,
I'm a bit confused about you saying that it has to be cash accounting for property. Is that a limitation of your spreadsheet?
No, it isn't.
Or is that a legal requirement? And if
it's a legal requirement,
but is that just for a property that a buy-to-let and HMOs?
No, I actually, it's a good question. But no, it's for as far as I know, it's for all property. I'm not going to hang my hat on commercial here, but I'm pretty sure it is for that. But cash accounting and tax year accounting is a requirement.
You're probably aware, my main business is deal sourcing.
Deal sourcing is the service like an accountant.
Yeah.
So you could do invoice accounting, but frankly, I'd steer away from it. It's too complicated, invoice accounting. I know that Stuart likes it because he gets quite a few invoices, and I'm not saying that it's wrong to use it, but 90% of my clients, from smaller to reasonably larger, don't, unless they're using Xero and need to have invoice accounting because they need to know how much they owe and to who to do monthly payment runs or to send statements out to people who owe them money. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Well, I do use Sage, and I'm registered, so I'm well into invoice accounting. I like it.
If you're into invoice accounting, I'm not going to knock it. But for anyone who doesn't like it or doesn't want to do anything as complicated as that, or doesn't want the double entry of entering invoices and payments and then having to reconcile the payments to the invoices, then this which I call three-dimensional, because there's three things there. I know, whereas I just do two-dimensional, which is a flat system, then this works and it's perfectly legal. As I said, I did insinuate that it was a requirement. I do believe I'm right in saying so, but I can't remember now. I wouldn't like to swear on commercial.
No, okay. Well, that's obviously something I need to look at deeper. Yeah. But another thing that it probably doesn't apply to too many people here, but because I'm VAT registered, I'm sure a lot of us here are using software which we pay for overseas.
What do you mean by overseas?
Well, for instance, Podio I use for my
so people
my CRM. So I'm paying in US dollars now. Because I'm VAT registered, there are reverse charge implications.
Yes, there are.
Does the system handle that?
No, not at the moment. No. Funnily enough, I only thought of it today whether I could introduce it. I think when you get in, I think you could make a manual adjustment, and I'm going to work out how to do it, because the people on here who are VAT registered are relatively few and far between. but then have more than one or two items bought from abroad that want to do a reverse. I can't build it in as a sort of automated system, but I can easily work out how to put it into inputs and outputs and make it balance out. Frankly, Nick, and I know you won't want to hear this, and perhaps I shouldn't say it, but if you've got one payment like that, I just wouldn't bloody bother.
No, I've got several.
Yeah.
Every
I mean,
month,
just claim the VAT back if you charged it. I wouldn't bother with a reverse charge, but and take it out of one box and into another. But yeah, technically you're quite right. You're 100% right. And it's probably the only thing it doesn't do. The only other thing it doesn't do is for construction industry, doesn't do the VAT. It's called the reverse charge.
There's reverse charge there as well.
It's the same thing. It's the reverse charge. It's just exactly the same thing.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Clive.
Yeah. Okay. Dermot's hand is back down.
Can you hear me okay, though?
I can now, and then I'll come to you,
Right.
Chris.
Okay, all it was, it's a very quick one, Clive. You talked about somebody being in the dark ages before and sending you a pile of bank statements and sending them through. I suppose I'm guilty to a certain extent with that. I've always used Excel to submit my tax return information to my accountant.
Yeah, good.
It was just a case of downloading the bank statements from the bank and then categorising them.
Yes.
Doing it once a year, usually in November or December, and then throwing it into the pot and probably doing a bad job because you're looking at making decisions about whole year right at the 11th hour. It's never the right thing to do.
No.
One thing I've always struggled with, and I'm sure technology has overtaken me, and that is that a lot of the transactions have always been, how can I put it? If I went and bought a service, say it was a joiner or something like that, quite often I'll get a paper invoice for that piece of work.
Yeah.
And then put it into a book, and I'll write it into a book month by month with a list of all the payments, and then reconcile at the end of the year. Now, I know there are better ways of doing that now outside of your software, I suspect. But I'm just trying to share or find out best practice. What's the best way to do that? Is that just photograph a receipt or scan it, and then where do you keep it?
To be honest with you, I'm holding a file. You can see it now because they're here. As I said, if you can keep them like this. As it happens, he gave me them like this. All these thin tissuey things. I scan them in, and because he wants a copy back, and I actually want to show him how better to do it, I went to the trouble then of printing them out so I'll obviously write on them the invoice numbers, but keeping them like that, or then just scanning that in and calling it supplier invoices for 23-24 as a digital copy is great. The worst thing to do is to keep those, because after 6 months they just start fading.
Yeah.
And within a year, you can't read them. The manual, the old-fashioned way, is to just keep a lever arch file with them in like that. Still no harm in that.
And that's what I do. I'm just wondering if there's a better and more modern way of doing it now.
Just scan it in through a scanner, holding my little scanner up there, whiz them through 80 pages maximum per thing. Takes about 30 seconds to feed them through. It's as fast as bloody lightning. And then just name the document invoices for Q1 or invoices for the year, and just park them. And as long as you've got a backup, you'll never lose them. They'll never fade. Whatever. I mean, there's
perfect. Okay, thanks, Clive.
Yeah, could talk about that anytime. Yeah. Chris has got your hand up. You got to unmute. Yeah, hi, Chris.
Hello,
Hi,
sorry.
That's great.
Yeah, just a quick question. If you do updates to your software, if you miss something off or something, how does that work with then passing it on to other people? Because obviously,
it's a great question.
Well, yeah, there you go.
It's a great question, and I obviously it's obviously not sophisticated enough to update on the fly. So anything like that, I could update individual ones, but I can't update all of everyone's in one go. It's not software in the background like that. I have tested it fairly thoroughly, and I'm happy that it's, if not 100%, it's 99.9% right. If there's a cell that for some reason has just gone funny, just send it me as a query, and I'll just correct it.
Yeah.
If for any, obviously every year will be a new template. Every year will be a new template. So that's an opportunity for me to amend, improve, etc. But if something had to be done then if you could imagine that sheet that we were looking at before with all the columns.
Yeah.
So if this is your sheet here and I say, oh God, that I've got to recall that, it's rubbish, it doesn't work, and here's the sheet here, the new one, then all I have to do is literally copy if there's 100 lines on your sheet, make sure there's 100 lines on mine, and I literally can just go shade the area, copy, paste.
Right, so it's manual.
And I think that I could literally copy your data on somebody's data from their one to a brand new template. I don't know how long it would take. I would say anything from a few minutes to less than an hour, but probably 5, 10, 15 minutes. And if that had to happen, it would have to happen.
Yeah, there's 100 people that bought it.
I hear what you're saying, Chris, and I'm not going to be dishing this out to thousands of people. I should be so lucky that 1,000 want it. But if 1,000 people wanted it, I would get it proof checked even more thoroughly, or have a way of updating it. But it's basically, there's quite a lot there in terms of the macros hiding pages and things like that. But really, it's not that sophisticated after that.
Yeah.
It's the hard bit was really all the hiding of lines and columns and making them open up and things like that. That was the hard part in terms of needing somebody better than me on Excel to do it. But it's a great question, and I take the point very much.
Nice software, Clive. Well done. I like it.
Yeah. Have a word with your developer, Clive, about the ability to shift the data out of your spreadsheet into an Access database, because that will be a very quick way to update.
Yes, that would.
You can do that. You can bring it out into the database and then re-upload it once the changes.
I have heard of that technique as it happens, and it probably is something that I might have a look at. Yes, thank you for that reminder. But I have heard of that. I know Access is you have to know what you're doing with Access, I believe. But apart from that, it is the way to do that sort of thing. Effectively, it just backs up the data, doesn't it? It's a bit like when you take a photo and you got a raw copy. They call it the metadata. All that metadata can reconstruct your photo for you. I think with Access, you're backing up the data, and then it can reconstruct into a new spreadsheet.
Yeah, that's one way of using it. But basically, Access is as easy as Excel, but it's what you're used to. Very few people use Access. So,
Yeah, I'll have a word with you about that. Perhaps you could explain it a bit more. Yeah. Okay, we're coming up to the 2 hours. So unless there's any more questions, Chris, you still got your hand up, but I think that's from last time. Right. Are you asking a question, Ian, or are you waving goodbye?
No, I'm asking one final question.
Oh,
I'm
please,
the elephant in the room. Will you be charging for this? And have you worked out how much?
Yes. Yeah. No, it's not the elephant in the room. I've got it on the PowerPoint. I'm going to charge £99 for one, 69 going. So if you wanted 4, which is unlikely, you'd pay 190, a 99, a 69, a 39, and a 19. I've got the full training and the full support involved in there. I would expect to be able to turn around any queries, most queries within 24 hours and 95+% within a couple of days. Do some more webinars. We've not lost each other, have we? Oh no. Sorry, you didn't see that. I was actually showing the PowerPoint with the numbers on it. So yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. That's great.
Yeah. How does that sound, seeing as you asked the elephant in the room?
Don't know. I'll think about it.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a lot in itself. We've got very similar spreadsheets ourselves,
Yes.
and we got 4 of them. So yeah.
Yes.
Soon to be 5. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Talk to me anytime.
Yeah.
Anybody got any questions? Chris's hand is still up, but I think it's just because he's left it up from last time because he's still on mute. So, and he's not unmuting and asking. So, shall we say good night?
Yeah, thank you very much, Clive. Great presentation. And
thank you very much. Let's have a think about it and talk to me anytime about it. We'll, sort something out. Just like people to use it really, and and we got a webinar in 2 weeks on Xero. I've got my bookkeeper joining us, and she's very, very hot on it. So gives you a chance to compare. But I'm not doing that. I'm not really doing that so that you're persuaded one way or the other. I think if you like Excel, I think an Excel system is great. If you don't fancy the other, then but it's your choice. But it also makes you aware of what the alternative is. You're unlikely to use Xero and go back down to Excel unless you realise it's just not for you, Xero, and you just got to go back to something more similar, more familiar. You're more likely to promote up to Xero or the likes of that when you're ready to do so, when you need to. So it tells you what to be aware of. Okay.
Good stuff.
Thanks very much.
See you around, everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye now.